My topic is SEC emissions disclosure requirements. In March 2024, the Securities and Exchange Commission took a decisive step by adopting a new rules aimed at enhancing and standardizing climate-related disclosures among public companies. This landmark regulation comes in response to a growing demand from investors for more reliable and comparable information on the impact of climate-related risks on businesses. These new requirements signify a major shift towards transparency, aiming to provide investors with clear insights into how climate risks are integrated into corporate strategy and risk management. So let's take a look at the key components and implications of these new requirements. So the first improvement is about material climate-related risks. The SEC's mandate on disclosing material climate-related risks requires companies to provide a detailed account of how climate change could affect their businesses. This includes both direct impacts like damage to assets from extreme weather events and indirect impacts such as regulatory changes aimed at curbing emissions. These disclosures are crucial for investors, enabling them to assess how well prepared companies are for the challenges posed by climate change. So, direct impacts might include the physical risks associated with climate change, such as sea level rise, wildfires, and extreme weather events that could damage company assets, disrupt supply chains, or affect operational efficiency. For instance, a company located in coastal area might need to disclose the risk of flooding or hurricane damage to its facilities. And indirect impacts encompass transitional risks related to the global shift towards a lower carbon economy. This includes regulatory risks, such as new emission standards or carbon taxes that could increase operational costs, and market risks such as changing consumer preferences towards more sustainable products and services. Companies might also face reputational risks if their climate strategies are perceived as insufficient. And furthermore, companies are encouraged to discuss their potential opportunities in response to climate change, such as the development of new technologies or entry into emerging markets for renewable energy. The emphasis on both current and potential future risk underlines the forward-looking nature of these disclosures. Companies are expected to consider not just the climate risks they currently face, but also those that could become material in the future as global warming progresses and regulatory landscapes evolve. The second change is that beyond the mere acknowledgement of risks, companies must provide detailed qualitative and quantitative information regarding their strategies to mitigate or adapt to these risks. This might include disclosing any relevant expenditures, the oversight and governance roles of the board of directors and management, and operational changes undertaken to address climate-related challenges. Thirdly, the SEC's new rules on climate disclosure notably include the requirement for companies to report their greenhouse gas emissions, specifically focusing on Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions. So Scope 1 emissions are those that are directly produced from sources that are owned or controlled by the company. This includes emissions from company vehicles, factories, and any on-site that release greenhouse gas emissions. Reporting these emissions enables companies to closely monitor their operational activities and implement measures to reduce their direct carbon footprint. The Scope 2 emissions includes the indirect emissions from the generation of purchased electricity, steam, heating, and cooling that company consumes. This category pushes companies to consider the sustainability of their energy suppliers and to explore renewable energy sources to mitigate their indirect environmental impact. The new SEC also made the decision to exclude Scope 3 emissions, which account for all other indirect emissions that occur within a company's value chain. Even though this decision has been a subject of debate, Scope 3 emissions often represent the majority of a company's carbon footprint, encompassing activities from business travel to production of purchased materials. Despite the contention surrounding the exclusion of Scope 3, the requirement to report Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions marks a crucial advancement. because firstly, this mandate by disclosing their direct and certain indirect emissions, companies provide investors and stakeholders with a clear picture of their environmental footprint. This transparency is vital for assessing the risks and opportunities associated with climate change. Secondly, this mandate also encourages reduction efforts. Requiring emissions reporting pressures companies to develop strategies to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. This could involve investing in energy efficiency, transitioning to renewable energy sources, and adopting clearer production techniques. While the SEC's rules represent a step forward in quantifying and understanding the environmental impact of public companies, so changes number 4 is that to ensure the credibility of disclosed emissions data, the SEC has introduced attestation and assurance requirements. Initially, companies are required to obtain limited assurance, which will eventually transition to a reasonable assurance, providing a higher level of scrutiny and reliability. Changes number 5 is this mandate encourages the adoption of timeline and exemptions. The rules feature a phased implementation timeline with larger companies facing earlier compliance deadlines. Notably, smaller reporting companies and emerging growth companies benefit from certain exemptions. This reflects a tailored approach to address the varied capacities of companies to comply with these new regulations and requirements. So these are basically the 5 most important changes in this mandate. And let's talk about the challenges and implementation of the new SEC disclosure. So the implementation of SEC's new climate disclosure rules indeed presents various challenges for companies. One of the primary hurdles companies face is the development of systems that is capable of accurately collecting and reporting greenhouse gas emissions data. Because this challenge is twofold. Firstly, companies need to ensure that data they collect on greenhouse gas emissions are accurate and verifiable. So by saying that, they may require new methodologies for measuring emissions, especially for Scope 1 and Scope 2 categories, and potentially for Scope 3 if companies choose to report these voluntarily or prepare for future regulatory requirements. And secondly, many companies might not have existing systems that can seamlessly integrate this new type of data collection with their current reporting process. Upgrading IT systems, training staff, and establishing procedures for ongoing data collection and reporting will be some necessary steps the company needs to do. The second challenges that companies face is that assessing climate-related risks involves understanding both the current and potential future impacts of climate change on business operations. So this is complex because first, as our understanding of climate change evolves, so too might the assessment of its risks. So companies must stay informed of the latest climate science to accurately evaluate the risks. Secondly, climate risk assessment often requires making long-term projections. But as we said, the requirement for third-party assurance on the greenhouse gas emission data also adds another layer of complexity for companies. That means companies must find and engage with third-party assurers who are qualified to verify greenhouse gas data. This could be challenging, especially in the initial stages, because of the potential shortage of qualified providers in the market. And secondly, companies will need to prepare for the assurance process, which might involve additional internal controls and documentations to support the veracity of their emissions data. So facing these challenges, the SEC needs to provide a structured pathway to compliance through its phased adoption timeline and detailed guidance. Because by detailing specific requirements and timelines, the SEC provides companies with clear expectations and a roadmap for achieving compliance. And companies are encouraged to start preparing for compliance early, leveraging the phased timeline to progressively build their capacity for accurate and verifiable disclosure. So In summary, while the challenges of implementing the SEC new climate disclosure rules are significant, the structured approach offered by SEC aims to facilitate a smoother transition to compliance. And if we take a look at the global context and make some comparison, we can for sure say that the SEC's rules are part of a global trend towards enhanced corporate disclosure of climate-related information. And similar initiatives are underway in the European Union and other jurisdictions that reflecting a collective move towards aligning corporate reporting with the goals of the Paris Agreement and broader sustainability objectives. So in conclusion, the SEC's new emissions disclosure requirements represent a monumental shift towards embedding environmental considerations into the core of corporate governance and financial reporting. By mandating detailed disclosure of climate-related risk and greenhouse gas emissions, these rules aim to equip investors with the information needed to make informed decisions. As companies navigate the complexities of compliance, the broader implications for corporate transparency, investor relations, and environmental stewardship will unfold. This initiative not only underscores the financial relevance of climate risks, but also catalyzes a broader shift towards sustainable development within the global economy. So the references I used, the first one is the official SEC announcement, which detailed the rule descriptions and provides me foundational information about the scope and intent of these new requirements. And also, I used the analysis by some legal and accounting firms such as Deloitte and Foley Lauder, which offers insights into the practical implications and challenges of these new rules. And I also used the commentary from academic and policy forums, which includes Harvard Law School's Forum on Corporate Governance, in which they had very good discussion of the SEC's actions in a broader regulatory and global context. So that's all for my audio presentation. Thank you very much.